Retirement is all about figuring out how to live the next 30 years without a paycheck and not running out of money in the process. It's super important to identify the risk associated with that. Here are the top 10 risks in retirement today. I'm host Ryan Wheelis of the On the Money YouTube channel powered by Allied Wealth. Thanks so much for stopping by. If you like the content we're putting out, please give us a like down below. Also hit the subscribe button. Type in your email address and we'll keep you updated when we put out more awesome content just like this video. All right, so you're thinking about retirement. Well, if you are, there's some really important factors that you should think about. In this video, we're going to discuss the top 10 risks in retirement. And the first one, number one, is going to be longevity risk. Longevity risk is the greatest threat to your retirement because your dollars may have to work for you much longer than anyone ever thought possible. And that is because there's all kind of new medical technology that is around, new procedures, new prescription drugs that are keeping people alive for much longer. A great example of that, by the way, is knee replacement, shoulder replacement, hip replacement. All these things have either come to pass or are coming to pass, and there's some interesting things on the horizon. In fact, it said, if you're alive in the year 2030, you could live to be 120 years old. Well, the threat of longevity risk means you may find yourself out of money while you're still alive. And quite frankly, I can't think of anything more scary than outliving my money. And that, by the way, is a common thread amongst most retirees or folks that are retirement minded, is they do not want to outlive their money. So living too long is absolutely a threat to the viability of your life savings over a longer time period of unexpected retirement. So not to worry, folks, there's things you can do to combat that risk. And some things like buying long-term bonds that pay income for long periods of time can be helpful. You can continue investing in good dividend-paying stocks. You can have a pension or a pension income. If you don't have one, you can create a personal pension plan. And lastly, you can use some type of an annuity that will guarantee income for life. There's a lot of ways to combat longevity risk, and many of those ways can be identified with working with a good fiduciary financial advisor who can help tools that can help you mitigate longevity risk. The next one, number two, is market volatility. Market volatility is one of those things where it can really cause you to derail your long-term retirement plans. And it's interesting because a lot of times people think they get to retirement and they're finished. They're not. They got to live, again, the next 30 to 40 years without a paycheck and not run out of money in that process. And what that makes you, folks, is a long-term investor. It's so hard to keep a longer-term view today. And the reason why is there's so much information out there coming at you so quickly. I mean, you can look, the Dow Jones closes at its all-time high, since 2007. The NASDAQ had its worst day since 2020. There's like all these since then's news clips out there. And what those do is, in your mind, they cause you to collapse your timelines. Well, why is that important? It's important to understand that if the market is falling, and you're succumbing to market volatility, what can happen is your emotions can take over and we get fearful of losing our financial peace of mind and our security. And as that market falls, we think about selling. And if we panic sell at the bottom, which so many people have done in the past, folks, we may lock in major losses. And even worse, we don't go back into the markets to recapture those losses that we locked in. And we find ourselves in a situation to where we no longer have the asset base that we had before, or the asset base that could have generated enough income that would help us finance the lifestyle we want to live in our golden years. So folks, taking on too much market volatility or being too aggressive in your golden years can really hurt you. To the contrary, being too conservative can also hurt you as well. And we get more aggressive because we want a little bit more. We get more conservative because of fear of loss. We've really got to manage market volatility, and there's ways to build portfolios that will do well in very volatile markets. So don't let market volatility ruin your retirement plan. Just understand it's part of being a long-term investor. There's going to be a lot of upside. There's going to be some downside, but if you stay with it over the long term and invest your money in ways that mitigate downside risk and seek to maximize upside potential, then you'll be able to weather market volatility much better. Plenty of ways to do that, folks, by the way. Just get out with a good fiduciary financial advisor can help point you in that right direction. Another one is going to be inflation risk. And I remember when I was a kid, we had a store, a convenience store, not far from our house. We could, in the summertime, we could ride our bikes to it very easily. And we used to walk in that convenience store and buy Dr. Pepper, a can of Dr. Pepper, for 10 cents. And today, I don't see many canned drinks in stores, convenience stores at all. But in the event that I do, it seems like I'm paying more like $1.50 for a can of Dr. Pepper. What happened? I used to pay 10 cents for it. Now it's cost me $1.50. Well, folks, that is the erosion of our purchasing power over time. A dime does not buy the same can of Dr. Pepper back when I was a kid that it does today. Now, there's a lot of different reasons as to why that happens, but it's important to understand that if you retire with $1 million today and that $1 million can buy this basket of goods and services, that same $1 million may not be able to buy that same basket of goods and services in the future. And you may find yourself having to decrease the quality of your lifestyle because you can no longer afford to live the way you lived before. So there's a lot of ways to invest to combat inflation. And there's ways to invest around it. But if we know it's out there, and if we know it's a risk, when we're sitting out and doing our comprehensive retirement planning, we can build into the plan measures that help us combat long-term inflation. So keep in mind that it's out there. It's actually rearing its head more than ever, not ever, but really challenging some of the higher inflation points in history right now today. So it's something to be absolutely mindful of and know about and know how to plan around it. The next one is going to be number four, is going to be healthcare and long-term care cost, right? Because again, if we're living longer, there's a greater chance that we find ourselves in the need of long-term care in the future, and we may find ourselves in a situation where we don't have the assets to produce the income we need to combat long-term care. So, and living longer also means that we have a greater chance of needing long-term care. And back in the early 2000s, we used to plan that 1 of 2 people in a household would go into long-term care. Now that's actually gone up to 70% of people in a household, a greater chance that both people will need long-term care at some point in time in the future. And it's actually increased. Now that's important because, again, if we're living longer and we're having to spend a lot of money on long-term care, we're really depleting our nest egg, and we may run out of money before we get to the end. But again, folks, there's ways to plan around long-term care costs and long-term care issues. You can buy long-term care insurance, for instance. I did a complete video on this on the channel. Please go back and take a look at it. You can also self-insure, so meaning if your loved one went into a care facility and over a 3-year period spent $300,000 and you still had enough asset-based after that person either passed away that home or came out of that home to maintain a lifestyle, you can self-insure. There's ways to get long-term care benefits through what's called asset-based long-term care. Those programs are out there. And believe it or not, some annuities have income riders, and those income riders will allow you to have your payments that you're getting from those annuities double while you go into a long-term care facility or need to have someone come in your home and care for you at home. So there's some ways to plan around it. You just got to be aware of them and conscious of them when you're doing your long-term planning around these risks. Because the reality is, when you're doing a financial plan, you are planning around these risks so that you don't get derailed later in life. The next one, number 5 here, is a concept called sequence of returns risk or withdrawal risk based on the returns we're getting. So an example is, if I retired in January of 2007, I was looking pretty good because the market reached a high point in October of 2007. So I was probably feeling pretty good, right? We all know what happened in the end of 2007 into 2008, into 2009. And the market went down over that period where it bottomed in about, I think it was March 5th or 6th, 2009, it bottomed down nearly 57%. So if you were taking distributions from your portfolio while the market was going down dramatically, your portfolio may never be able to recover to where it was before the distribution, or excuse me, the drawdown occurred and the distributions came out, and you may not ever be able to get back into a situation to where you can recover and have the same amount of money producing the expected amount of income your portfolio did based on your plans. So sequence of returns risk is very, very real. It's very, very important to understand and plan around, and there's plenty of ways to plan around it. And to the contrary, sequence of returns risk can also work in your favor. If you have some major up years, the market's up 10% this year in year one of retirement, 20% in year two, and 15% in year three, you're going to be looking pretty good. So just understand sequence of returns risk is very important. One of the ways to combat that, there's many ways to do it, but one of the ways would be to maybe keep 3 years of your income needs in a money market account, right? That way, if you're your investment account has to go through a peak and a trough, it's got time to recover without the pressure of distributions coming for your retirement income coming out of the account as well. Just one of many ways, many ideas you can have and use to plan around sequence of returns risk. Number 6 here is political factors, economic and political factors. And this is called political risk. And this has gotten really prevalent in retirement. Political risk is something that we used to not discuss a lot as financial advisors, but it's certainly what we're discussing more today. And a good example of political risk is the new Secure Act, for instance. They're changing RMD ages, which to me is a good thing, by the way. It's a positive change. The age will slowly but surely get pushed out to age 75. But one of the caveats of political risk is when your children inherit your IRAs now, they used to be able to take a distribution over their life expectancy over a long period of time. Now they're required under the Secure Act to take the money out of your IRA over a 10-year period, which means ultimately they're going to pay a lot more taxes on your IRA distributions, which makes tax planning more important as well. So that's just one example of political risk. And the other example of political risk segues into number 7, which is Social Security uncertainty. And I'm going to tie these together. So number 6 being political risk, and number 7 being Social Security uncertainty. So I'm going to kind of tie these together again. And what I mean by that is the political risk that I think is out there today is that no one is talking about the changes that need to be made in the Social Security system to keep it going. So ultimately, nobody's going to, in order to do that, you have to raise taxes or you have to cut benefits. Well, no politician is going to get elected if they're out there beating the drum around the country on the campaign trail talking about raising taxes. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. You don't. I certainly don't. And so they're not going to get elected by doing that. The other side of that coin is they're not going to get elected by talking about cutting Social Security benefits by 20% either. So it seems that nothing is going to be done, folks. And ultimately, I think what happens is the political risk here of someone not wanting to get elected and knowing they can't run and get elected on cutting Social Security or raising taxes is that nothing will be done. And ultimately, if nothing will be done, I think we as people, the U.S., can expect, even if we're getting Social Security, by the way, as much as a 20% haircut on our Social Security checks. Further, I think the age to collect Social Security income will be steadily pushed out over time, and I think that's coming much sooner than later. I do believe after those things are done, the Social Security system should be viable, but it's something to really consider. One of the ways to plan around that, by the way, is there's ways to have a guaranteed grow income in the future, right? So you put money in a program, you get a guaranteed growth rate, whatever that value reaches in the future provides you a guaranteed paycheck you can outlive. So it's a way to ensure the potential cut in Social Security. So there's ways to do that, folks. And again, this is all about planning around risk, which your comprehensive retirement plan should do. But it's important to understand these risks so that you know when your plan's being done that these things are in fact being addressed. So number 8, a big threat is lack of adequate savings. And what I mean by that is your retirement plan is either constrained, which means if you're constrained, you have enough asset base to produce the income you need. But if you lost a substantial part of that asset base, even 10% in some cases, 20% in some cases, you no longer have enough income coming in to support your lifestyle, and you're going to have to make some cuts. So that's inadequate savings. Now, folks, don't feel bad. I've got clients that have $10 million that are constrained investors. Their income needs are so high, they need $500,000 a year in income. Well, if you got $10 million, it's a 5% distribution rate off your portfolio. And if they go down 20% to $8 million, now they have to take out a larger percentage, right? So their portfolios can be constrained. The other side of that coin, too, is an overfunded retiree. And overfunded retirees may not rely on their investment base to produce the income they need. Maybe they get real estate income, a large amount of cash, other investments, business income, whatever it is. So you're going to be, as far as lack of adequate savings goes, you can find yourself being a constrained investor, constrained retiree, and that can really put a damper on your investments or your retirement income. So if that's you, it's okay. Again, it doesn't mean you're broke. It doesn't mean you did a poor job of saving. It simply means that your asset base, it really needs to be working as efficiently as possible in a way that seeks to maximize return while seeking to mitigate downside risk. The priority being seeking to mitigate downside risk first and getting the return second. And there's ways to do that and manage that risk in your overall retirement plan as well. Number 9 is cognitive decline. I've had conversations with many of my clients in their 60s, 65, and 70s who are caring for their parents. And like Ryan, it's mind-boggling to me because, my parents took care of me as a child, and now the roles have completely reversed. Well, folks, part of that, too, is if you lose your cognitive ability, you may find yourself in a situation where you're no longer making good investment decisions. Maybe you panic when the market's down 5% and see your statement's down a little bit, and you panic and sell at the bottom, and you go put your money in bank CDs, or you fall prey to making bad investment decisions altogether simply because your cognitive factors aren't where they used to be. So be mindful of cognitive decline. If you feel like you're going through that, appoint someone you trust to help handle your financial affairs that can take care of you. It's a great idea. I've seen it work very, very well for some people very, very close to me, by the way. And the last one here, number 10, is really a big one. It's unforeseen expenses and emergencies. And there's all kinds of things that can pop up along the way, folks. I have seen stuff that in my tenure in this industry that'll blow your mind. And so one of the ones that, is a great example is, we were here in Texas, and it gets hot in Texas in the summertime. If you lose both air conditioners in your house, that can be a, $10, $15, even $20,000 hit in some cases. The dishwasher goes out. There's another hit, right? The car needs new tires. You need a new car, or God forbid the kids need help. Whatever it is, there's a lot of things that come up along the way for unforeseen events and emergencies. And I'm a big fan of having a pot of funds somewhere that's simply an emergency fund. It's not invested. It's just there. It's sitting in cash, and it is a rainy day fund. And hopefully we never need it and we pass it to the grandkids or kids or whatever. But if we do need it, it is absolutely there. So folks, these are what I believe that are the top 10 risks that we all face in our golden years. They can all be managed if planned around accordingly in your overall written comprehensive financial plan. So folks, thanks so much for tuning into the channel. I'm the host, Ryan Wheelis. This is On the Money, powered by Allied Wealth. If you like the content we're putting out, please give us a like down below. Also hit the subscribe button, and we'll keep you updated when we put out more awesome content just like this.